there was this management guru who was at McKinsey in the 70s and 80s, Tom Peters, and he wrote a bunch of best-selling books. If you're my age, you probably have read some of these books, In Search of Excellence, A Passion for Excellence, and so on. He was like the Jim Collins of the 70s and 80s. Wonderful writer, did a lot of good work on looking at different companies, large companies, and why they did well and so on. And I remember in one of the Tom Peters books, he gave a story. And I really found this story really hard to believe. I said, this cannot be the way the world works. So what Tom said is that, and he said this was a true story. He said that there were these two gas stations at this busy intersection in California. And they were both self-serve gas stations. And at that time, for those of you who are older than the time when you just put your credit card in and out of the machine, you had to actually go into the store to pay, if you remember that. One of the owners of the gas station would come out every hour and a half, pick a random car, and tell the guy, listen, sit in the car, I'll give you a full serve. So you would pump the gas, clean the windshield, check the oil, just do everything, and at no charge, right? And the guy across the street could clearly see what is going on. And his perspective was that this is stupid. It's self-serve. Why do you want to give full serve on self-serve? Because you're never going to make the money on that. And you can't do it for everyone. What's the point of doing this for this random people? Because the other people are not getting serviced. Over time, what started happening is the guy who was providing the extra service once in a while was getting more business. More cars were going to his gas station, which is the guy across the street. And even after the guy across the street saw a drop in business, and it was clearly visible to him why his business has dropped, he did not make a change to his modus operandi. And then Tom Peters says that you can sit down with your most direct competitors and you can lay out all your competitive advantages and your hidden trade secrets and everything. Just lay it all out. And they will listen to you. They might be intrigued, but there will be no behavior change. Okay? So I said, this is ridiculous. How can this be true? How can you, in a capitalist society, when someone is showing you something that would make you more money and more successful, you choose to ignore it? And again, I was in my mid-20s when this happened. I had actually started my IT services business at the time. And so I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to prove Tom Peters wrong, right? And I'm going to prove Tom Peters wrong in two different ways. The first way I'm going to prove him wrong is I'm going to copy anything from anyone that I find is interesting and sensible, even if every bone in my body is fighting that for whatever reason that Tom is talking about. Okay, so I said, first of all, I'm going to clone good practices and good ideas wherever I see them. And the second is I'm going to test it in the real world if this is exactly how people act. In the IT business, the industry at that time was growing so fast that we had lots of turnover. We had lots of young, ambitious kids working for us. And they used to get job offers all the time, 20, 30% raises and all these things. And many of them wanted to set up their own IT business and compete with us and so on. So very often, someone would come into my office, look at their shoes, and turn in their resignation. Okay. And then when I asked him what he was going to do, usually, again, looking at the shoes, he would basically say, I'm going to compete with you. Okay. And at that point, I felt, and this is something I've always felt right from the time I heard about Bill Davido. For me, marketing and all these things are all about really an academic pursuit. The fact that we make money and all that is just a side effect. So I was into this pursuit of proving Tom Peters wrong. I did not really care about any negative impacts on the business or cash flows or anything. So I said, that's great. If you're going to business competing with us, is there anything I can do to help you? I said, if you want to sit down, I can lay out all my trade secrets. Okay. And so these guys first of all thought that I was either kidding with them or lost my mind or whatever else, and I'm not getting angry or anything. So I said, no, please sit down. And I explained every possible thing I could about the way I went about getting clients, segmenting, finding the business, all these different things, right? And then I sit back and observe when they set up their business, what and how they were proceeding. Not one of them followed anything I told them. Okay. And I said, my God, Tom Peters is so, and that's just stunning to me because I wasn't bullshitting them. I was actually laying out everything, black and white, everything down. And maybe they didn't trust me. I don't know. Okay. But it was pretty apparent that what I was telling them was maybe that the power versus force, they should have known from the subconscious there was no bullshit coming to them. Okay. But maybe the pipeline was completely clogged. Who knows? But they never did. None of them followed anything I told them. Okay. And so I discovered that basically there's a small portion of humans who have this cloning gene, who are willing to basically say, I am stupid, the rest of the world is smarter than me, I will learn from the rest of the world. Because to really be a cloner, what I've understood is it's a exercise in humility, right? Because you're basically saying everyone else is better than me. And I have no problem admitting everyone else is better than me because they are. And also because I'm a shameless cloner. You know, what's wrong with cloning when no one else does? So what I found that cloning is incredibly powerful because so few people are willing to do it, right? They're just not willing to go there. And so there's a number of facets to cloning. Okay, so what I try to do is anytime I saw people in the industry or outside the industry do anything that impressed me or made me look up and say, oh, that's something good and all that. I remember, like, for example, one time I got a letter from my law firm in this big brown manila envelope, and the label they had used was a very nice, elegant label, large label, firm name written nicely, and it was larger than most labels I had seen. And I cloned that. I said, you know what we'll do whenever we send out stuff, we're going to use this large label. And I've used it all the companies from then till now. Okay, so that's an example of I've continued to look for small things, big things that I can clone. So when you're looking at this enduring competitive advantage, there are two facets to it. One facet is that you come up with something like our cable guy, where he's coming up with cable lengths and you're just trying to be 3 months ahead of the rest of the pack. And he has some sort of advantage for some time. But also, what you need to do in parallel with that is build advantage one tiny piece at a time. So, every little best practice or every little thing that you see, if you incorporate over time, it will expand into something meaningful. And it's just small pieces. Like, for example, anytime we hire employees in any of my firms or even in India, when we hire at Dakshina, we run a test, which a company in New Jersey came up with. It's called Caliper, and it basically gives you a personality profile on the person. It also has a facet of it, which is an IQ test oriented, so we can also see how smart they are. But that company basically gets a job description from us. So if it's a sales job, they know what that means. If it's an administrative job, if it's a job with high attention to detail, etc., and they overlay that with the personality profile. And they basically give us a report which tells us, they come up with three rankings, which is matched, person is matched to the job, or matched reservations, or don't go there. Okay. And what I've learned is that if they ever say don't go there, don't worry about how much you like the person, don't hire the person. Okay. Now that testing costs us about $400 each time we do that. And one of the most expensive things that can happen to a company is bad hires. Very expensive if you have bad hires. And so I don't even hire interns without running through the test. In fact, I got an email last night from our group in India, and they were saying that one of our alums, they wanted to hire him for 3 months. He's free for 3 months. It's only 15,000 rupees a month, 45,000 rupees over 3 months. That's about $800 or so. My suggestion to them was run Caliper, even though it's a 50% overhead of what we're going to pay. We just don't want to deal with 3 months of someone who's a misfit. And you can't tell that in an interview. You mentioned this to me many years ago, and I incorporated this. Many times I mention it to so many CEOs I meet, they don't incorporate because the cloning gene is missing, sorry to say. So cloning has many facets to it. I continuously look for things that other businesses, other companies are doing, which I like. And I try to see, is there something that I can incorporate? My entire livelihood now is based on cloning. Pabrai Funds was cloned from the Buffett partnerships. And again, what happened to the Buffett partnerships? The most, just to tell you how amazing and bewildering the world is, the most successful set of hedge funds ever run in the history of hedge funds from 1956 to 1969. Really well run, everything else. And then this massive industry takes place. And then from 1969, when Buffett shut the hedge fund, to 1999, when I was thinking of cloning him, 30 years. 30 years in a capitalist society where everyone is clearly aware of what he did and what the results were and all that. I could find nobody who cloned that model. This is incredible. It's an amazing model. And so I said, okay, I understand why no one cloned it, because Tom Peters said that and I've seen it. So I said, I will clone it. I was put on this earth to clone it. And we cloned it. And my family has a significantly higher net worth because I did that. God bless cloning. Now I'm in the process of buying an insurance company. Why am I buying an insurance company? Because that's the model Berkshire Hathaway used. I don't need to come up with ideas on my own. I can just clone those ideas. Yeah, so it works. So I think that's cloning is very important.